call to order. We got a quorum. Al and Mark zooming in. Let's see.
Albert will be here in a minute.
Yeah.
Just talking to Amber.
Okay, we'll wait a sec for Albert.
I think we can try.
You can let him know what's going on.
Yeah.
So you guys double team, so you got to do something, right? Anyone, so the minutes from last meeting, everyone go over those? Anyone have a comment or change or anything? You guys, minutes okay?
All good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Al?
Yeah.
All good on the minutes?
Yep.
All right, so minutes accepted from last meeting. Next meeting is March 11th. Sorry about all the jostling around with tonight's meeting. I got a little lost with the second Monday in the month thing. Let's see. Tonight's meeting is going to be a dead stop at 6:30. So that's probably a good thing because I'm not 100% tonight. And it'll keep us focused. We got a bunch of stuff to cover. So if anyone starts to drift, I'll rein you in. If I start to drift, wave your arms at me. Also, I plan to send out a list of dates for potential additional meetings over the next couple of months, just so we can have a good shot at getting as much code revision done as possible, as soon as possible. So when I send those out, just look them over and let us all know what dates work and what times work for each of you. See, other correspondence. Actually had quite a bit of correspondence. Got an email from Peter Reese just yesterday. Provided quite a few suggested changes to the code, chapter 53. I did not have a chance to read all of those over, but I will, and review and consider those. I'm sure there's some good stuff in there. So thanks, Peter. Peter also pointed out an annoying defect in our E-code search system. Anyone who's ever tried to look up a word in the code would know, and then reads the code, would notice that the search does not detect all the times that word is used in the code. You could do it 3 times, you get 3 different answers. It's pretty frustrating considering the work we're doing right now, trying to revise the code. You have to read every single word of the code to find things. So that's, I don't know, the way his email reads, he said he has try something, but he didn't provide whatever that something is. So I'll ask him about that. And I don't know, is there, with E-code, Christina, is there any way we can communicate with them to find out if this is?
Yeah, it's the town clerks handle any communication with them, but I'll let her know that's the case.
It would really make a huge difference.
Yeah.
I'm seeing this all the time.
Do you think it might be helpful if we were to take one of our sort of clean copies of the code and make it available on our website so that people like Peter could go and actually, if it's not within E-code, you might actually be able to do your own search on your own computer with that file separately. Like if you're just searching a PDF or something like that outside of the ecosystem, it might be easier to actually do that.
If you use the find function within a PDF, obviously it would be only for whatever section of code you have. That doesn't usually miss anything.
But it's not easy to do through E-code. It's kind of frustrating to get a clean copy. I'm not sure what it might
You can export the chapter to a PDF.
Yeah.
And then that's going to have whatever that chapter has in it. So as long as that is accurate, but as Peter pointed out, there's the word doc is in what, 32 chapters, right?
Yeah,
mentioned in some scene. So you're obviously not going to download a PDF of all 32 chapters, most likely.
Oh, well, no, I'm only worried about 53 at this point. Actually,
right. So at least for 53, you could download a PDF of that and then use the find function of the PDF, and that usually doesn't miss very much in my experience.
All right, that's good, because I have been taking sections out and working on them so that I didn't even try to find in those sections. Okay, it's a good suggestion. It also appears that Peter is a victim of that same search deficiency, because one of his suggestions was that we removed the resident from Chapter 53 definitions because it doesn't appear anywhere else in the chapter, but ironically, we're going to be discussing the term resident as it appears in the chapter tonight. So somehow it didn't come up in his search. Let's see, also got a submission from someone who would like to remain anonymous. The concern is that Chapter 53 does not identify docks as accessory structures for zoning purposes. I checked the zoning code, Chapter 133. I didn't read the entire thing. I did do a search for accessory structures and so forth. All I came up with was swimming pools and tennis courts. But that could be a search glitch. But the concern is that if someone puts in an application for to put a dock on a piece of property, if it's not zoned for dock, not zoned properly or vacant land, it won't show up under the zoning code. So it sounds more like a zoning issue than a dock issue, but that point was raised, so I'm using it here.
Well, if you put an accessory structure, you have to have a primary residence also on the same property. But that would prevent vacant lot.
Right. But when you look under the zoning code, they don't identify docks as accessory structures. They only identify swimming pools and tennis courts, as far as I could see. So that's why I'm saying I think it's more of a zoning code issue than a dock issue. If that's an issue for anybody, that we want to prevent docks on vacant land or a house, a lot that doesn't have a structure on it. Another piece of correspondence was from Rob Coburn of the Prudwin. Contacted me to let us know that they plan to install the additional 3 to 4 moorings that they have permits for. They had already put in the 4 moorings. We're aware that they are not in the right place, at least one or more of those.
Say, yeah, should we make them correct before they install new?
They removed everything.
They removed everything.
Yeah.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, we went back and forth over the summer and their contractor, and at the end of the season, by the time we got around to it, they just pulled them out.
They just pulled them
They
out.
pulled everything out.
Well, he did. Okay.
And so Rob has been very communicative with everything. When I went to him, I think, John, you were the one who had pointed out to me that there was an issue with the location at the time. Maybe somebody had complained to you about it, but I called him up. He's like, well, let me call my contractor and we'll get on this right now. Well, he doesn't know. He's like, I have no idea what this is supposed to look like. So they've been, I think, so far true to what they said they were going to be doing when they came and spoke to us to begin with.
So he said he was going to work with Bert to get them moved and work with your oversight as to where they belong. And then they'll install the other three, maybe 4 if they can fit. I remember there was an issue with whether they'd fit an 8th in there. And then he said he'd provide us with the schematic of where they are, what the locations are when he's done. Another letter was a letter of coordination on a Pike application. The comment period was open through today. As far as responses to these letters of coordination, it became an issue last time. The town attorney spoke to the town attorney about it. He confirmed that since they were merely pointing out whether an application complies or doesn't comply with an applicable code section, and since that's obvious on its face and not a matter of opinion, then it can be responded to without a meeting or discussion.
By individuals or by
I would do it.
committee as a whole? You would do it as from the committee?
I'm just going to look at it and see if there's something, if it's a 125-foot dock and it's on 100-foot, well, they're all 100-foot areas now, but just point that out.
To make sure that it meets code.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, oh yeah, since it came up, I read through the open meetings law, the New York State Open Meetings Law. We, as an advisory committee, are not a public body. Technically, we don't have to comply with the open meetings law. However, to be prudent and not run afoul of any issues, it's best that we avoid any discussions by a quorum by more than 2 or 3 members that are not public. So just, we will avoid that.
Then, how's that gonna work at site inspections? If we call for a site inspection where all of us have to be there, but do we have to set up a meeting date and notice of the meeting date?
I don't know that we're all gonna, that would be,
I mean, that was the one rare occasion, I think, where everybody was in the same spot at one time.
did we actually have one of those? Where was that?
Was there 4?
I mean, I think if we try to set up site inspections where we're all there, we'll never get any site inspections done. So I think you just go and take your own notes. The final piece of correspondence I got was, NOAA publication that I received from the former town engineer, John Cronin, known as Captain John Cronin, entitled Environmental and Aesthetic Impacts of Small Docks and Piers, which was a good read, informative, and generated some ideas. I was, thank John for that.
Can I get a copy? Can you email me that?
Yep, I can send it to everybody who wants it.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, it's, environmental and aesthetic. As they'll point out, as I think I have previously pointed out, the aesthetic aspect of all of this is so subjective that it's just too much, I think, for us to even tackle. And that, I think, is basically they come up with as well. I mean, they try, certain areas try to do it, but I think we've got enough on our plate without trying to deal with something like that. Anyway, I'll send that out. So next we've got any briefing by, does Al have anything to say that you want to? Yes, or Ben, you got anything for us?
I guess the only thing is the last meeting, you guys are interested in the board's feedback on raising fees or changing the fee structure. My suggestion would be for the WMAC to put whatever they want in writing and send it to the town board for consideration. But just, ad hoc, anecdotal.
Yeah, a lot of good issues were raised. I don't know, someone would probably have to go back and listen to the tape. Christina did take some notes. Al probably has the most info, but I know in the conversation, there was a lot of points made, and I'll go through my notes as well.
The town board, is happy to receive whatever questions and we'll discuss.
No, that's great, because I put fees on here to discuss tonight for that reason, so I appreciate that. That's good.
So, as promised, I put together a little 2023 summary for you all. Everybody here has it. I apologize to those of you who are not here. I don't know, Christina, if you could maybe forward that to Al and Mark if they're interested. So just following the same format that Peter started a number of years ago, added a couple more categories just as we're touching on a couple more things now. Always a topic of interest is the number of marine-related incidents that we handle as a division, as a Marine Division. So this year, right at the top of the list there, I have 317. So this is just a period of May 1st to October 31st. There are things that happen outside of those realms, but that's the time frame that we've been using, because obviously that's the bulk of the time. But just as a for instance, like kayak impounds or paddlecraft impounds from the town landings would not be on this because that happens in December, right? So just as a for instance. You can see those numbers kind of bounce around a little bit year to year to year. I don't really know what to make of that overall. I will say this year in particular, this past summer felt like it was somewhat light on calls for service. In other words, people calling 911 or hailing Mayday or things like that, which enabled us to be a little more proactive in enforcement efforts and education efforts and reaching out to people. So those things kind of work hand in hand. When there's a lot of calls for service, we're slightly less available for other things and vice versa. So we'll see what next year brings. Failure to display registration and or validation stickers continues to be the absolute number one thing that we stop boats for. We stop boats all day, every day for that sort of thing. If you can tell people they have to have their stuff, their validation stickers displayed, that would be great. Like if anybody has questions, let me know, voters guides, we can hand them out to people. There's a lot of confusion and most of it comes from the DMV. I'm part of this East End Marine Law Enforcement Task Force, and we are trying to flex our muscle to get DMV to understand that they need to explain things to registrants a little bit better when it comes time to getting their information displayed. Basically, to us, to law enforcement, it looks like a car driving down the road with no license plates, right? So that's the comparison I use to explain to people all the time.
Is your experience that people who are having that issue are they keeping their boat on the island, or are they traveling in from outside?
It's everybody. It's like it is a phenomenal number of people, and it's just like nobody with a driver's license would ever think of driving a car without having license plates on it. Nobody thinks about having registration stickers or validation. I don't know why. It just is. A lot of people have them and they keep them in there like the equivalent of a glove.
And it tells you to put it there and it tells you where to put it.
It says it very explicitly.
Yeah, okay.
It's just one of those things. So we do write a fair number of tickets for that. We give an immense number of warnings for that because again, people are getting bad information and ignorance is no excuse, but we try to work with people as well. So they have it, they put it on. Hands down, the leading reason for us to approach vessels, so not stop them, but just to approach them, is vessels at anchorage, right? All of us have dealt with that. It is a phenomenal and ongoing issue all of the time. You guys specifically are on the water, I've seen you out there a bunch, you can vouch for, we come in, we clean up a harbor, we leave the harbor, and it's a mess.
Have to leave.
We don't even have, by the time we get to the other end, we're starting again. So I don't know what the answer to that is. We tried a new approach this year of, we hand out the Shelter Island Voters Guide to every single person that we talk to about that. Hundreds of them go out. What we started to do was, it was advise people, if you're in a marina, tell the boats next to you. You're going to Shelter Island, hey, if you're over there, there's an anchorage. And I don't know if that's going to actually do any good, but at least it's another thing that we're trying. Or on the boats that are rentals or part of boat clubs, I asked the captain that we give the voucher, the brochure to just leave it on the boat. Just leave it there.
You guys are, it's a lot of valuable time, especially if there's two guys on the boat. You got equipment and man hours and you're spending it on this. I remember last time it came up, we putting some sort of sign on those buoys. That it's not just a buoy that someone walks. Well, yeah, I drive into a new anchorage and I see buoys around. If they don't have anything on them, I'm just sort of like, well, is that the channel or is that what is that?
Right. So we did add a number of buoys this year to West Neck Anchorage.
So that they're a little bit larger.
They're larger, right? We went bigger, we added them. Unfortunately, the vast majority of people that we talk to don't know what the buoys mean. They don't know what any buoy means.
Well, that's why a sign might help.
Right, so it says on there, anchorage area, and it is the color and shape and displays the symbols for an information buoy. Unfortunately, people aren't required to know that information.
Yeah,
So we usually get, oh, you mean the no wake zone buoys? No, it's not a no wake zone buoy. It's an information buoy. It's not regulatory. So anyway, yes, we added more. We added more buoys. They have large lettering on them. I don't know that made any difference other than it
they actually say Anchorage on them? I can't recall.
Anchorage area.
They do, okay.
It did help us because it gave a larger, more visible line of sight, right? Once we get 100 boats in there, it's very difficult for me to point out to somebody and say, yeah, you gotta be inshore. See that buoy over there? They can't see it. So at least now there's a few more, kind of corrals them in a little bit. We're open to suggestions, moving forward. We did write a few tickets this year for that. We give a lot of warnings, lots and lots and lots and lots of warnings.
Would you even have the ability to recognize, say, that this person's like a repeat offender and he's had enough warnings? I mean, is that even something that you could even,
Yeah,
I don't know whether justify is the right word, but you know what I'm saying? If you see somebody that, oh, okay, this guy was here last week and he's doing the same thing,
yeah. So depending on the level,
is there repeat offenders, I guess that's my question.
right? Depending on our level of interaction with a person, dictates how much information we're lawfully allowed to gather from that person, right? So if it kind of gets to a point where we're asking for some vessel information, we're doing safety inspection, we're going to get all of their particulars, and then we document all of that, right? So we'll know for sure that we met this person. Butch has a amazing ability to remember vessels. He knows whether he's seen a vessel anywhere on any water ever in his entire life. I have no idea how he does it. I do not. Like, yep, that's a beautiful boat, and keep going. So yes, name, shape, obviously, manufacturer. We try to do that. There's been some discussion about trying to create like an onboard database that we actually enter that into. We got to explore that a little bit more. It may just ultimately come down to just writing some more tickets. I wrote the same person twice in a week for the same thing. So like that person earned a ticket without a doubt, both times. That captain was actually one of the 4 hire captains that are now plying our waters endlessly, right? We have a huge number of for-hire water sports at our waterways,
Yeah.
or not just water sports, but just water activity. Huge number. Like, I would say at least a third of the boats on any given day are in some sort of for-hire capacity.
Be time to.
Right, whether they've been rented, whether they're bareboats, the charters, boat clubs, there is some for-hire component with that. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's not. The vast majority of these companies are headquartered on the South Fork. I personally have reached out to the owners and operators and managers of those companies. Personally emailed them the brochures so that way they understand what's going on. They can pass that information down to their captains and their users or whatever. But there is no end in sight to for-hire use on our waters, like without a doubt. So, and maybe that's not a bad thing, but it's just something that we definitely need to continue to be aware of. Vessel size is increasing. Everybody knows that, right? Nobody's getting a smaller boat. Like, everybody is upgrading, getting a bigger, larger boat. So with that comes obviously congestion in anchorages, more significant weight concerns, things of that nature. So we're obviously aware of that and try to stay on top of it. We wrote a number of reckless operation violations this summer for creating excessive wakes and things of that nature. We conducted PWI, so boating while intoxicated, and NDZ, which is no discharge zone, right? Enforcement details this summer. So those are planned exercises that we went out in an enforcement capacity. For the NDZs, we board people's boats, we check their Y valves are closed and locked compliant with federal law. We dye their water tank systems, flush their toilets, make sure that no dye shows up all around the boat. The dye is incredibly potent, like one drop will fill an area like this of bright green, bright green. So there's no getting away from it. We had no violations found, none, which is great. Our PWI enforcement was fantastic. We had 2 boats out for 4 hours each on a busy Saturday night. And we stopped a very large number of boats and we found no BWI violations. We had some other violations that we wrote, but no boating while intoxicated. So that was one enforcement effort, right? 4 officers, 1 enforcement effort. But good news, right? Like good news
How many
nonetheless.
boats do you think you stopped in that effort?
I personally stopped, I think it was like 17 boats. Right.
There were 4 of you. Wow, okay. So you and then
Well,
and then 3 other
two
people.
boats, 2 boats, 2 officers on each boat, right? So,
Okay.
right.
So,
I don't know that we stopped 34 boats altogether, but 25 without a doubt.
wow.
What was the time frame of that time period, time of day, I should say?
It was 4 to 8. I think it was 4 to 8 p.m. Right, so kind of prime time.
Yeah.
Weekend, busy weekend afternoon, beautiful, flat calm, like prime time.
Did you check along the beach and on sandbars and stuff?
So enforcement effort obviously has to be very organized and meticulous in the way you do it. So that way there's no discrimination in what's going on. So you have to set some parameters ahead of time for how you're going to stop boats, right? Because you have to legally engage with these individuals. So we can either stop them for cause, meaning they've done something to a violation that we potentially could write a ticket for, stop them and then interact with them that way. You can stop them on like a scheduled basis. So every boat, every 3rd boat, every 10th boat, something like that, passing through a certain area. But it has to be very organized in order to, otherwise not legal, right? Illegal stops, not good. So anyway, all of that was good news, right? We're out, we're on people's boats, we're showing our face, people are aware. They were kind of surprised when I get on a full uniform. I'm like, hey, yeah, I got to go down into your head and see what's going on. Please wake up your family and get them out of the way.
How many did you get to do a number of those? Or?
So we did 2 enforcement efforts in each of the 2 anchorages, which wasn't as many as we hoped to do, right? I'm not going to beat around the bush. We want to do more. And the DEC, as part of our whole conversation regarding those closures that had happened earlier in the year, they want us to do more. And this was part of that as well. So we document that, we give them the information, we share that with them, they're kicking that up to the FDA. And so all of this is just part of a broader, like, keep our water clean type of strategy. So it was good. But moorings, anybody have anything else about patrol? Switch over to moorings quick?
Well, with the anchorages and stuff like that and your efforts there on that front, I sort of, in my mind, think about that in conjunction with having individual, like town-sponsored moorings in those spaces. How would that change your approach? Would that save you time? Would it make it worse? Do you think about it that way as well?
Yeah, so that's come up before, at least in our conversations, just about like, would it be, is there a better model, right? Where you have X number of moorings that are available, transient moorings that are available. And if they're full, then there's no anchoring, you're out, like you're in or you're out and that's it. There's a lot of complexities that go with that, right? Maintaining the gear, installing the gear, enforcing that, how you patrol that, right? It's sort of like a parking permit type of patrol type of thing.
Right.
But there has been thoughts about that, right? Is it a town installed thing or does the town put out an RFP for an outside person to come and manage that sort of thing. There's a lot of complexities to it, but it has come up many times as a potential solution or way to deal with the, sort of burgeoning, anchorage areas.
But in terms of like your activities there, would that be helpful or not helpful?
Yeah, well, assuming that I personally wasn't detailed to just sit there and, take a fee and check the, check the boat. It would be, kind of move us along and on to the next thing. If you treat that sort of as a call for service, right, where we have to go and interact, then the opposite of call for service is enforcement activity. So there is some potential there, but a lot of considerations. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but it's definitely not just, we're just going to throw those in and go do that.
It's establishing a whole business model, really.
Right. And sort of, if the town were to go into doing that themselves, right, then we'd be in the marina business, functionally, a little more than we are with the dock. So that's a complete paradigm shift from where we are right now. We're not in the mooring business. We're not in the marina business, the transient, moorings.
Got a question. Last time I looked, I know it charts the anchorage designations in Copland and West Neck were twice as large as what we pulled them into.
Yeah.
Still think.
Yeah, so.
Then you could, when you approach a person and they say, well, we didn't see the buoy, you could also see there's a buoy here. If you look on your electronic chart plotter, you got right in front of you, there's the line.
So a lot of times, John, people actually say that exact thing. Well, look at my chart plotter. I'm in the designated anchorage area. And on their chart plotter, they are, because that anchorage area was significantly larger, whether it used to be that way or if it was just erroneously recorded to begin with. I don't know.
So it was that.
Right. The majority of people don't update their system.
That's what it's a system update.
Modern systems now are connected to the internet and they update all the time, right? If you're using Navionics, right, you're getting the most up-to-date information. Even that is wrong sometimes, but at least it's not for want of an update. So yes, we have tried to reach out. I have personally tried to reach out to Navionics in the past, and it's kind of full by the wayside. Well, yes, it's the Coast Guard. So our anchorage buoys are permitted with the Coast Guard, right? So the Coast Guard has the real coordinates for everything. That information then needs to get converted onto updated charts, right? And then the private companies that use and or make those charts need to update their information. Think like Google or Verizon doesn't allow you to have something sent to the post office because you're not using a street address. The systems don't all talk to each other. So we need to talk to the makers of the software to get them to then say, okay, here's where this is supposed to be. So that way new systems have the right information, old systems will still have the wrong.
I don't know if they still have, but there used to be a publication for the notice to mariners.
It's still there.
That should, at some point, that should have noted those changes.
And I would venture to say it probably has. I could look back and check on that. But very, very few mariners look at the notice to mariners. Yeah, right. I'm not a mariner. Those guys are commercial guys. I'm just out on a boat. Okay. Let's see. Some moorings. We've migrated the administration of the wait list for mooring areas to online moorings. We are in the process of going fully live with that, so there will be a sort of renewal and turnover period of time where we're going to make people update and verify their own information annually to stay on a list. Right now, there's only one wait list that charges a fee, that's Deering Harbor. That's going to continue to be the case, so there will be a fee for Deering Harbor's wait list, which there already is. The other wait lists, there's no fee levied for them as of right now. So you will receive a notice. Do you want to stay on this wait list in this position? The answer is yes. You update your information. You submit it, you will pay the $7 online moorings administration fee, and then you're good to go. You'll get notified in a year. You do the same thing again. You don't want to stay on the list, you don't want to pay the fee, you can disregard, you be removed from the list. So that's just a little improvement to waitlist administration.
What's the name of that software system?
Online moorings. I need to get with you, to be honest with you, about that, get you set up. The town board members have a different level of restricted access to it. I can reinstate yours back to what it was, and we'll touch base and show you guys just kind of what it is if you ever want to look at it. You can't change anything, but you can see everything. So I'm one of the two administrators for that, so I can walk you guys through that. Or three, I guess you're.
And that's the same system that spits out the bills, the annual bills, huh?
That's correct. Yep.
I'm still not able to access that site. We had issues.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
with your password, right?
Yeah, maybe sometime you and I.
Right.
I gotta get it set up too, so we'll have a class.
Maybe we'll have a class. Very good. So we're in the second year as of right now of our phased implementation of the new mooring fees. For those of you who may not know or remember, we went from a 3-year mooring permit to a 1-year mooring permit, and we were phasing that in through attrition. So anybody who expired was renewed to the following March 31st of whatever the next year is, and then they would then be on the 1-year program. There's been some hiccups. Overall, I would say it's worked fairly well. Almost all the hiccups that are generated, we can resolve within that business day, one way or the other. We did have a 330 renewal notices go out that had the wrong fee attached to it because the system was calculating it based on the prorated fee, which it shouldn't have been because they were the 1-year ones. Right, yeah. So a funny little thing about that, those notices went out at midnight on January 2nd. At 7 a.m. on January 2nd, I saw that those notices had gone out and that they were wrong. And somewhere around between 8 and 10 o'clock, I sent a disregard notice to all of those people. Somehow, lots and lots of people read the first one and very few people read the second one. So we did have quite a few people who were confused and upset, but we ultimately got it sorted out. They paid the correct fee. Nobody paid the wrong fee. There was no issue there. And so it has generally worked out. All of the coordinates on online moorings are represented by one of two things. They're either represented by the permitted coordinates, or if they have been inspected and the coordinates have been updated, then they are represented by their inspection coordinates. I am slowly correcting or inputting inspection coordinates for all of them. So all of the moorings that you'll see on the online moorings chart will be true to their representation in the real world, right? Because right now it's not necessarily that way. I am doing that based on an interaction-based system. So if I need to go see your mooring for some reason, then I check the 20 or 25 moorings in proximity to those based on how much time I have, record all that data, and put it into the system. So we're slowly getting to everybody because I gotta see moorings in pretty much every corner of the island at some point anyway. So 20 at a time, we're kind of updating that information. So when I'm confident that everything is accurately represented as what it is in the water, I'll let you guys know and kind of just move forward. We did have some abandoned and derelict removals this year. I think it was 6 total that we pulled out of, we focused on West Neck Creek, specifically in the gridded areas, right? Since that's a wait list area, if there's stuff that's not supposed to be there, placeholding things for people that might otherwise want a mooring or be able to get a mooring, we cleaned that up. So that worked out pretty well.
Number was by chance of what you had to remove?
Yeah, I think it was 6. I think it was 5 moorings and 1 something else.
Mooring and
Just
pulley
attached
bar.
to garbage at the bottom that we. In line with that, I just want to make clear to you all that there was no defined fee to be paid to retrieve your gear from our impound. So we go out, two of us go out with a boat, time, manpower, et cetera, pull your gear out, load it into the back of the truck. Sometimes that requires the use of a machine, depending on the weight, and then bring that to our impound. And then there was really no set fee other than the town's expenses. So the town's expenses per mooring were pretty low. Like if we're doing 5 at a time, we can bang them out pretty quick. So it became readily apparent when somebody wanted to get their mooring back this time, they were going to pay significantly less to get their mooring out of impound than if they had hired a contractor to go and remove their mooring. So we're effectively rewarding people for leaving their stuff in the water. So we remedied that. We created a schedule of fees for impounds. And so for a mooring, it's $250 for the first 14 days that we have it, which is about the same amount of money that you would pay a contractor to go out and move it. And then after that, it's $500. So 15 days and beyond, it's $500 to get your gear back. Because now we've had to move it around in the impound, we're putting it back, we're probably doing other things with it. So that was passed by resolution at town board, along with impound fees for moorings, for vessels not impounded as part of like the boat storage permit thing. Because we had a circumstance this fall where there was a boat that was left on somebody else's mooring. We went and physically removed it from the mooring because it was a violation of town code. Town code ticket was written for that. But again, we didn't have any mechanism for levying a fine for that. You know, if your car gets impounded, we have a mechanism for charging you for that. You have to pay a fine to get your car back. We didn't have that for boats. We have that now. I believe it's $250 plus $25 per business day. If it requires services like of sea tow or something like that, like if it's a sunken boat that's derelict or something, then it's plus the fine, the fees for those special services as well. Directly in line with the fees that were established for like impounding vehicles that we already had. So we just use that, use fees that were more appropriate for the water side of things, and then that was passed by resolution. Cotton Creek Dock, there was limited excused absence and sublet this summer. There's a couple of people who had mechanical issues, so they were excused at least for a period of time. We had quite a bit of turnover there last season, not this past summer, but the season before. So we had some new faces down there. Seems to be pretty good occupancy overall. Tom, you're down there a fair amount. It seems like everybody's.
There's a few boats being unused. We know.
Yeah, right. There's some people that play the system a little bit, without a doubt. And unfortunately, there's not any codified rules and regulations for that, so they kind of skate around. I've been trying to work on that a little bit. But ultimately, it seems to be going fairly well down there. Tom had mentioned or asked, the town is going to rebuild the bulkhead in that area in the near future, so the town's going to notify all the slip holders down there, make sure that they're good to go. For the dock, for the bulkhead. Right. So when that work is actually scheduled and we know when it's going to begin, then I'm going to notify the slip holders just so that way we're not in their way, they're not in our way, and show up and have problems. Policy and procedure needs developed this year. That's what I was just talking about. There is no policy really for it. So boat storage permits, we had like 325 plus or minus a few permits issued in 2023. Very little in-season enforcement. So in other words, when we go down and patrol and check, if there's nothing there, we take it, bring to the impound. Handful of boats during the peak of the season, and then at the end of the season, when I went down 2 weeks before they had to be out of there were 62 boats owned by 58 different people still down there. I sent out a notification email to all those individuals, say, hey, just a reminder, you gotta get your boats out of here, otherwise we're gonna take them, because I don't want to take 50, 60 some odd boats. By the time we came all the way back around, I think I impounded 9 or 10 total. I think it was 9 in a dinghy trailer, sunfish trailer. So boat storage permits, right? So boats that are kept at the town landings on those kayak racks, all around the whole island, right? Yeah, so out of 325 that are permitted, there were 60 left over right near the end of the season. I sent a notification out 2 weeks before they had to be out of there. Then I actually gave them 7 more days before I went and actually took the stuff and impounded the stuff. I didn't take anything. So we had, again, limited enforcement. Seems to be working fairly well overall. I'm in the process of trying to migrate all of that administration to online moorings as well, right? So that way, if you have a mooring and you're on a wait list and you have boat storage permits, you have one account, if you will, and all of that stuff is listed there. We can see all that's valid and it's assigned to you rather than having all these sort of diverse lists and Excel spreadsheets and that office and that office and this office. Everybody can see everything all in one place, centralized. I'm working very closely with the town clerk's office on that. Shellfish, right? Yay, good. So we continue to do a seeding program this year as we have in past years. We did 17,000 oysters in August. About 2/3 of them were 35 millimeter, and the balance, the other third, was 40 millimeter, so a little bit bigger. Decent size. They were distributed primarily in West Neck, in the West Neck complex overall. In the fall, that was Butch and Cornell did that one. In the fall, I went out with Cornell. We did 700,000 clams, and the majority of them went into Cockles Harbor complexes, with lesser amounts in some locations in West Neck and in Crab Creek as well. Right, so we try to focus on areas that are accessible to the public. Right, so that way, in 3 years or so, when these clams are of legal size to harvest, people can go get them. Right, so that's part of the program. We want them to be in the water to clean the water, but we want people to get them, to earn their livelihoods and to enjoy dinner and do all those things. That's part of all of this. I'm working with Cornell to get the historical locations to ultimately be able to map all that and physically show it, ideally, if we can, on the GIS system. But if nothing else, have maps of the locations. So that's
Something we want to broadcast?
Yeah, I think, so yes, I do, personally. I believe that, only because there's a fair amount of taxpayer money that's going to this program. And I believe then that the taxpayer, whether they happen to be shellfishing all the time or happen to be a commercial shell fisherman, everybody has an equal opportunity to at least know that this is out there and they could go benefit from it if they want. Provided that, of course, they have the appropriate license to do so. So.
What do you want, a week head start?
Well, no, it's just always, that's always been, that's not something that, you put the hotspot of the clams on.
Yeah, so I think the
It's just,
amount.
something that just goes, against my grain.
So the frequency and the amount with which we're seeding, right, and the number of areas, like, we don't have any idea what really survives.
Yeah.
But 700,000.
I know that's been a problem too, especially with the oysters.
So if I just show you all these locations in Cockles Harbor that have been seeded over time, it's not necessarily saying this is Tom's best spot.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah. Mhm.
anyway, Cornell continues to do their remote set tank program. I think they came and spoke at the town board meeting, right? Okay, so they're still doing that, which is good. Deering Harbor Conditional Shellfish Program opened up December 4th. We had 2 days that were open up until, I think, last week, just due to rainfall considerations. So it's been largely a useless effort so far this year, but looks like we got a stretch of good weather coming up. So it was open today, it was open yesterday, it's going to probably be open for the rest of the week. And as you guys know, we had we worked with DEC to get those emergency closures lifted almost entirely. The closures that were associated with the anchorages were lifted.
You're still working on the Cockles Harbor.
I'm not working on that. We're not working on that.
The Buttermilk Island closure, we're not working on rescinding that?
I haven't had any conversations with DEC about that beyond when they got the correspondence from Cockles Harbor Marina.
I wrote them.
Right, and then they asked about that, and I offered our input, right, support, and clarified that our enforcement efforts absolutely include the mooring areas in and around there. They wouldn't not include that. And then haven't heard diddly squat about that since.
So in your opinion, what do you think the next step is to ask them again to push this issue?
Yeah, find out what the, right.
If this issue isn't pushed, it's just gonna be, that's just the way it's.
Right.
And that's a big concern.
Yeah, I can reach out to Matt Richards and find out kind of like what the next step would be.
Appreciate that, yeah, okay.
That's all.
One other
Sorry it
thing,
was long.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of
one
stuff
other
to
thing, I
cover.
just didn't notice any scallop seed in your
We didn't
list.
do scouting scalps this year.
Didn't do any scallops this year. Why was that?
I believe they had die off right before we wanted to go.
Oh, in seed?
Yeah.
Huh.
So we had no scallops.
Okay, now, aren't they kind of contracted to give us X amount of stuff?
I don't know any of the details associated with that.
Something if they didn't deliver what they were contracted to do, that's
Yeah.
town board.
I could speak to that a little bit. With typically, the contract is that they provide what they've managed to raise successfully in terms of oysters, scallops, and clams.
Oh, okay, so there's no specifics there, really.
There's no specifics. It's kind of, if I remember right, the contract said something to the effect of, we will try to provide a minimum of X number of thousand of this, that, and the other product.
Oh, okay. Right, thanks.
It varies, some years when they've had a really good crop, we get more than what they've,
That happened last year, I believe, actually, yeah. Yeah,
and other
okay.
times you get less.
They
So
called
it's
us up and said, we have so many oysters, can you guys go take them?
Yeah,
I will just
right.
go do it,
Have any information about how successful those have been, or sort of tracking that over time, or any way to
that's
sort of
why
figure
your
out
map
if it's sort of,
is, that's kind of what your map is.
No, other than where we're putting them
right?
and anecdotal information, like, I go and harvest clams that weren't planted clams, you can tell the difference between them. Other than that, success rate, we really have no idea. I think it'd be a fantastic science project for students, like high school student or college student. I think it'd be really, really cool.
And Cornell doesn't, they obviously don't do that if we.
They do, I don't believe they have the staff to be able to do that at the scale that they're doing this, right? It's mostly just shipping stuff out.
Years ago, what they tried to do genetically, breed a shell, like a clam shell that had a marking on it.
Then the Tatas.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And then you'd get the clammers to hopefully provide you with, information, but it's really, really, it's so difficult.
I
No
don't
one's
think
got
there was
good
ever
data.
an avenue created for someone to report on it either.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Can I speak to that again?
Yeah.
One area where I think we can get some data, mind you, is that there are at least 4 sanctuaries that we have that weren't done by Cornell. They were done by TNC. And really, we as part of the program that put in multiple thousands in those areas, at least the one in West Neck, and we've never really gone back and done any, just a scoop to find out if there's anything still alive in them. And I think that would be beneficial, because at least you'd get some information. It's a different type of program where the Cornell is kind of like the Johnny Appleseed program, where you're spreading. in places where you expect them to grow or think they'll grow. The TNC was a program where it was within a 4 buoy area of maybe, about the size of a baseball field, maybe, or the infield of a baseball field, and put in multiple thousands of clams. They came from polluted waters in Queens, with the concept that within 2 weeks of being in those areas, they would clean themselves and hopefully procreate. So whether they all died off or have procreated and brought and procreated throughout the rest of the estuary is a really good question. I think
There's survey methods available, like I believe TNC and Cornell and maybe a few others have worked in Shinnecock Bay to try and document that sort of those success rates. So there is methodology available for that, but we don't have any of those mechanisms established here to do it.
I mean, TNC they're not doing their own work on stuff like that?
They're not doing it anymore.
They let it go?
They did let it go, Billy.
Yeah, they
let it
did.
go.
They abandoned those sites a long time ago.
Right.
I mean, a year with them.
They
I've done those population count out. I mean, it's not high tech. I mean,
No.
it's pretty much you do a grid and you pick them all out.
In this much area.
Right. Right. And the coordinates for the 4 areas that we have are right in our code. They're right in the town code. They were mapped out. They were buoyed. The buoys are all mostly gone. I think they're all gone. But
I think
the areas are easily accessible, and we should find out. I think that's something that it's a worthwhile.
Well, they should just let whoever goes in there and does the counting keep whatever they get.
I'm not saying we should. But yeah, I mean, at the beginning of the season, the scallop season, you guys will do test dredges, right? And you see
Yeah.
what if there's something out there. What's wrong with doing a test dredge in these 4 areas?
Yeah, I mean, it can be done. I mean, I could go around and try to test some of these areas. I know that I was in the one off of my mooring in Montclair County a couple of years ago, and there was nothing but shell in it, nothing but dead cohog shells. But also all those ones that we're talking, those sanctuaries we're talking about are what, 20 years now? So anything that was put in there originally is probably long gone by natural causes. But if there's new sanctuaries going in now, as I think there are, this should be considered for the new sanctuaries, definitely.
They're not. The Cornell, remember, is doing the Johnny Appleseed type approach, not the sanctuary approach.
Although they do have actual sanctuaries, the Cornell has sanctuaries going now too.
Right, they had done one with that scallop program that they did in Coppell's Harbor, where they tried to establish a little sanctuary area. I don't really know. All I know is I was requested to go and remove those buoys once that's done. Right.
All right, something to be checked out. Thanks, Bo. I know you had the wait list information that you sent me too, that,
Yeah, you gotta, we'll
yeah,
talk
been
about
on.
it, right? So I had just emailed Billy, as I mentioned in this, right, that I'm working on developing sort of a policy and procedure that's listed, right? So everybody can look at it and understand exactly how the wait lists work, how issuing a slip at Common Creek works. So that way it's not sort of subjective and cloudy and confusing. But I obviously want to get input from, I'm working with the town clerk's office, so sent it to Billy for consideration. I actually sent it to John way back when, and then I let it kind of languish a bit. So more to come on that.
No, it's good. It's good stuff.
Like
It's,
you said, you got a lot going on right now with this, so timing was poor on my part. I apologize.
no, we'll get to it. It's good. It's good stuff. Thanks, Bo.
Oh, quick question. Your enforcement duties, we have this phased in mandatory recreational boating license. And that is included in your enforcement?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, so as of January 1st of 2025, everybody who operates a boat will have to have some form of approved boater safety education.
And for January 1st, 2024?
I'd have to, I don't keep it written down, but it's like everybody born, I wanna say after 1982, something in there, maybe even earlier than that at this point. It's been phasing in over like 10 years.
Yeah.
And it skips a couple of years every year, but the January 1st of next year, everybody's gotta have something. So to that end, we are still offering voter education courses. We're gonna offer them this summer, I think, at the library. We're working on that. And they're available anytime online still. So everybody's got to have something real soon.
Online is New York State gov.gov.
Yeah, if you type in New York State, like voter safety, it'll come right up. Yeah, and there's OUS offers a course, NASWA offers a course, there's a bunch of, it has to be an approved course, it can't just be like votersafety.com, you know?
All right.
That's what we got.
All right. Anybody else? We're good? Bo? Thanks, Bo. Let's see. My briefing, try and blow through this. See, January 10th, I met with the town attorney, the planning board chairman, and the building inspector to discuss the intersection or interaction between Dock Code Chapter 53 and the Wetlands Code Chapter 129, particularly with respect to boardwalks, catwalks, whatever you want to call access points, ramps. It's, the Wetlands Code is contradictory at best. And we really just went around in a circle. One chapter points at the other chapter and it points back. So basically, until the Wetlands Code gets cleaned up a bit or replaced, in the interim or for the time being, I plan to just add to our code, chapter 53, as I go through it, that included under that particular section is not just the dock, but access to the dock will be considered when we're looking to see if it disturbs the wetlands or that regulated area. That's about as good as we can do right now. On the 22nd, I appeared before the town board, the work session on the moratorium. I understand that they voted to approve it yesterday, the moratorium?
Yes.
For 3 months?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for that. So around May 5th, we got till about May 5th to get a bunch of stuff done. And so we'll be working hard on that. The last item I wanted to mention was, so previously we discussed a dredging permit at the Royer property. And the fact that, the permit in the town is only open for a certain period of time, but under the DEC gives them, I think, 5 years or 8 years. At any rate, apparently, I don't know whether they did any dredging or not. There was a lot of equipment there, but what they did do was replace a substantial portion of bulkheading, about 50 to 75 feet without permit or having made an application. So a violation was issued. I'm not positive it's the same contractor that there was another violation issued to on another job that we dealt with, so I'm not sure about that yet. But I'm bringing this up, one of the reasons I'm bringing it up is because of fees, which I wanted to talk about later in the agenda, because basically, while we've increased dock fees, we have not increased, fees and fines. To my knowledge, we haven't increased fines. So it's currently cheaper to, just like your situation, it's cheaper to just do it and then pay the fine than it is to pay the fees to get the application and the permit processed. So something to work on. Let's see, next new business. So we've got,
Bill,
oh, yep,
Bill,
sorry.
can I ask a question?
Sure.
When you were speaking with the building department and the attorney and the planning board, we always interpreted a catwalk as something that was built off the ground and went over the shoreline or over wetlands or something like that. How does the town interpret the difference between a walkway and a catwalk?
I don't think catwalk is defined anywhere. Boardwalk is basically what you're gonna, boardwalk and path are the two things that I've seen. I don't, here. This wetlands code is brutal.
Does Jack have a differentiation in his mind what the two different structures are?
Jack Costello?
Yes,
I have no idea.
he said he's on the meeting now. I'm
Is he?
trying to ask him.
Name's up there, but
His name's there, but I
Oh.
don't see him.
Jack,
Okay.
are you there?
Yeah, I'm
This
here,
is-
at least here to watch and see what you guys are doing.
So Mark has posed a question to you as to whether you differentiate between catwalks, boardwalks, paths when you're putting dock plans together.
Well, it's never been an issue until the Rams head in. So I'm just trying to see what direction you guys are going in, and that's why I'm on tonight. I've got a couple of applications that you guys are going to speak on, but this has never been an issue, and I'm just, like I said, I'm looking for an education on what direction you guys are going in.
Yeah, the wetlands code defines boardwalk. I don't see catwalk in here.
How does it define? Oh,
Boardwalk is a walk or stairway down a bluff constructed of planking, which can be at ground level or elevated over vegetation and which cannot be more than 5 feet wide.
and that's called a what?
Boardwalk.
Thank you.
And if you read through the wetlands code, you'll find you can build one, you can't build one, it's, whew. Anyway.
Thank you.
So that was a result of that meeting. Let's see, let's get on to the permits or the applications. First one is, I'm gonna try and pronounce Pascod. I don't know how to pronounce that actually.
Silver.
so maybe.
Code.
So that,
It's a mooring application. I am not 100% sure of what is being asked for here. It says relocation. Looking at the paperwork, I'm not positive where it is currently located. It looks like they want to go to W-3555.
No, he has two moorings in West Neck. And he wants to move one of them to that vacant location or previously approved location in Coppell's Harbor.
Okay.
I only know because he emailed me, asked me for help on how to do that, what to do. I told him how to fill out the application.
Yeah, I didn't see anything on here that indicates where he is now, only where he wants to go. But W-3555 is
In West Neck Bay.
West Neck. So he wants to move that to a location in Cockles Harbor, which I guess he's indicated with his lat long here. I assume that's the new position.
I think that's it.
He's got, punch that one up, Christine.
Did the pen.
Which, oh, okay, there it is.
So if you see that little green dot right next to that pin, that was a previously approved location for, what's his name? He canceled his mooring a few weeks ago. Levins, yeah.
I haven't seen it in Deering Harbor.
No,
Oh, different.
Marty Levins.
Martin, not Peter.
And that's an approved location?
It's not gridded, so it's a formally approved location. Somebody else previously had it over there.
You know what it was?
Well, you can look and see what it was. I don't know off the top of my head.
This is a 37-foot sailboat. Christina, does it indicate what boat was on that mooring? It was pretty small. So this is not, it doesn't indicate riparian or private. I assume this is not riparian, it's private. Did it give any information?
Yeah, you have to go to his application.
Or maybe we can just get the distance to the other moorings in the area and see if.
Eighteen. 18.
18? Huh. Yeah, we should look at the distance then to the surrounding moorings, because this is going to be twice the size.
Ninety-two. This one is 71.
Seems like we should move that pin to where the green dot.
Oh. Thank you.
Or you're not on Levinson, are you?
I'm taking, yeah, I'm getting the gear out.
The
I'm
one,
not putting in the,
you're not putting in the new one.
not yet.
There's a Josh Klaus indicated as the contractor. Okay. It looks like it makes sense to move that pin to where the other, right where the other one, 2613 was located, because that would give them more swing room. So if we can change the,
Yeah, so it's a 107 to this one, 131, and 107 to the other one.
so you want to, what'd you get for latitude and longitude?
Does that boat draw?
Is it 4.5? 4.5 feet.
Use the actual coordinates, Christina.
Yeah, so it is on the online mooring, so we can just refer to the location of C 2613. And but I can give you. But not necessarily.
And we don't know the depth there, right?
Is that something we can suggest to online mooring to make the depth available? Is that,
Well, there's no need to suggest, we can put it in there. All that stuff can be put in there, but it's not anything that's ever been,
It's more of an overlay, right, to map?
no, we input it. Yeah.
Right? Doesn't look like it should be a problem.
Each spot.
Uh, Anybody, Matt, you have any issues with that?
I have no issues with that.
So,
No, I'm good with that.
Al?
where does it say he's given up a mooring? I don't see that on the application.
I think the other mooring was given up, correct? It was another different mooring that was given up?
11 seems was given up, right, but he's proposing to relocate, I believe. right?
Yeah, it says relocation permit.
Relocating his mooring, which is
At-
W whatever, it's in West Neck Bay somewhere.
Oh, okay. So
So
that's what's,
It's
okay.
going to go from West Neck 3555 to Cockles C2613. So it's a,
Okay, it just doesn't say, I mean, I'm only seeing 2 pages of application, or maybe 3, but none of them say anything to that effect, that's all. And that's what's on the website. That's all, I don't have a problem with it if all the paperwork's in order.
well, we should clarify on the application that his mooring at 3555 is going to be removed. Bert's here and he's removing it.
I'm moving, it's
Oh.
sort of moving one in Coggles.
One that's there now at the mark.
Unrelated to this.
Got it. Sorry.
So should this
Do
be
we need to
conditioned?
specify? Yeah.
Should this be conditioned upon the removal of the old mooring? Is that something that we do?
That's a permit condition as it is.
It's gotta be
Once
removed, yeah.
if he's
responsible.
effectively giving up his mooring permit for 3555 or whatever the number is.
Yeah.
So once you no longer have a valid permit, it's incumbent on you to have it removed. Or
It is your responsibility to remove it.
Unnecessarily.
Mark, any issues with this?
I'm fine.
I'm good with it. So we've got
Yeah, I'm good with it.
5-0. Approve that. Next one is Pike dock application.
Don't have none of that application.
I did
Well,
not.
yeah, it's being distributed basically because we never, according to the Army Corps of Engineers, they never issued a permit or letter of permission, as they put it. So we don't have all the paperwork in order for this to be considered,
Oh, so it wasn't a complete application then?
right? So it was on the agenda, and then they just notified me today that they hadn't issued that paperwork yet. It's still, today is actually just the end of the comment period. So it's premature. And that's why we're not reviewing it tonight. So that is those are all the applications we have. Other business, try and get through these 2 items quickly so that we can get to chapter 53. I just want to point out, I don't know if, there's just been talk about Sunset Beach Dock. I don't know if there's an article in the paper on it, pretty much explain what's going on. Location hasn't been set. Apparently they have a deeded right to a dock in the middle of Crescent Beach. They've done a title search and everything else to determine that's valid and good and runs with the land, so it goes from owner to owner. Town board's negotiating a new location at the end of Crescent Beach, so it's not in the middle of a swimming area. It's looks like the new location is going to be in a AA residential area, so this would be a residential dock, and those standards would apply. And we'll have to wait to get an application to see what use they want to put this to. I asked whether it was going to be used as a dinghy dock or to bring in some 80-footer. I don't know what they've got in mind, but we'll see when we get an application. So that's up in the air for now.
Bill, did you say it was a private dock?
No, I didn't say private. I said it's going to be, it's in a residential area. It's another one of these unusual situations where it's will be a commercial owner of a dock in a residential area. So it's there are plenty of other issues that have to be. The state has to take a look at this, and Stephen is pursuing that just to see what exactly has to be done to permit this to even be done. So there's a bit of work before it gets to us.
Thank you.
Last item, fees. I appreciate what Ben said earlier. Al, you were on for that, right? As far as fees?
Yes.
Yeah, I think, it was, I think we've got some good input and then some good insight. And I'm surprised we were not made part of the conversation leading up to the determination of the fees. I understand the town spent some time consulting others. I'm surprised they didn't bother to consult us. But I appreciate the opportunity to provide some of our input to the town. This came up with the mooring fees also, and it's just surprising that it happens the way it happens, or it has happened the way it's happened. As I pointed out, if it had come to us, I think we would have pointed out that, if you're going to raise the fees, you should raise the fines. And we can talk about that tonight. Does anyone have any comments on fees or?
Yeah, we also talked about raising the threshold for when you need to pull a permit. As that number has been around for about 25 years or so, of $10,000. That should go up. The other thing we talked about is that typically a DEC permit is open for 5 years with a 5-year extension, basically just with an ask with no additional fees. Town permits are good for a year. And that the dredging permit is in with the same category as a dock permit. So you have something that is typically a maintenance issue, having the same expense or the same cost as a permit that's a dock is typically a 25 or 30-year investment. So, something that has to be done every 5 years or thereabouts, sometimes less. Your fee is way more than, what's rational for it.
Can you just put that in a short memo? Because Ben's asked that we submit something to him in writing, and if you pass around to the rest of us, then we can add what do we have on it, and we can submit something to Benj.
Okay, I can get that out early next week. I'm out of town and not within.
I don't think we need it immediately.
Okay.
But it would be good to get it back to him. Okay. Chapter 53. See what we've got a little bit of time left.
I should have asked for that.
So what I had sent out, Matt and I put together this observation sheet, basically take advantage of the atlas that Matt put together that has a lot of, you can, right off that atlas, you can glean a lot of information and come up with what I consider all these objective points regarding these different areas. I only included outside waters because on this list, because I think that inside waters will require a different approach and definitely probably want to do site inspections for inside waters. I'm not sure we'll really need to do on-site inspections for outside waters because it's, I think we can break these down into sections that are pretty well described on the atlas. What we end up with as far as sections may differ from what the atlas has right now because they may just overlap one into the other. But if each of you could insert what you have observed on that atlas, this, let's see, we got it from James. I don't know if he didn't know how to, operate this Excel program, but if you don't, just ask Matt or I, and it's pretty easy. You just enable editing, I think is the point you hit, and then you can just type in your indications on the column under your initials. And what I'm looking to get here is some consensus on what issues we have at each one of these locations. So I went through this last time, but what I put down here is depth, exposure, N for navigation or traffic. In other words, congested areas or areas impacted by wakes. And then P for public beaches or pristine beach. And I think this will give us a pretty good idea of what we're seeing here on the outside waters. And then we can move on from there if there's any, how we want to address that in the code for dock design.
I made some comments and circulated it around, but I managed to not edit them into the document that was actually posted. So it's like,
Oh, it's a separate one?
Yeah, so I added it onto yours, and so it does show yours and mine, but it's not, it's that document that I emailed around noontime, I guess, today.
Yeah, worst case, we just.
And so I can go in and I can take James's and add them in.
Yeah, we can just dump them in there.
Okay, because I did fill it out here on the homework sheet, but I didn't get it into the computer. Maybe you can help me and I can figure out how to input it.
You just give me the, if you want to share your paper,
That could work too.
do a little data entry late night.
We can figure that out.
The only thing that I noted on this, and it only came up in 2 locations, was, and I just noted it there as a note, there's 2 areas here. There's one location off of Shorewood and the other location off of, where was it? Smith Cove, where there's the fish trap areas. I made a note here so that maybe you can add that in at the end.
Good.
The other observation I saw was that there was one map that wasn't covered here, and it's Crab Creek is Atlas page 16. I filled that out only because there's 2 lots that don't have docks on them. It's the point.
Yeah.
It was
That you would consider outside waters? At the mouth?
It didn't continue the map around the island, just
Right.
that one
Good catch.
map. Most of it's association property, but there was 2 lots there that don't have docks, and if you would just include that one into this.
Yeah.
Just to complete the circumference.
Yeah, and James added Mashamik, which I didn't bother because I have a feeling that would just be its own separate.
Go back to that at a later date. I think
Yeah,
we do
I-
have to do that.
That's all, yeah, I mean, it's gonna,
That's
that might be just its
pending.
own separate section.
Yeah. Maybe we could be, we could just be explicit about that and as we do the rewrite, just be like, this whole section has not been addressed yet, or, so we can
Yeah.
make note for future generations.
Yeah,
It's just
I
a
don't-
priority, I think. This is,
Until we get everyone's feedback, it's gonna be hard to say whether this will all boil down to one section, two sections, three sections, or, it may at the end of this, they all get treated the same. I don't know. I just have to see where we go with this.
James isn't here, but I mean, having looked through what he wrote down and what I did, they track reasonably well with what you had on here.
And he thought his tracked pretty well to mine. I didn't get a chance to really.
I thought the mine tracked pretty well with what's here.
Yeah,
And I guess that's from yours, Bill. That's Bill's comments there, so.
Good.
the only thing I found sort of like, in terms of like the sort of navigation and then the traffic component, it sort of seemed like
That's where I was off too.
I would maybe.
Should have broken it out into
specific,
two
yeah.
separate.
Yeah.
We'll treat it that way then. I mean,
That might be easy.
this is not set in stone. It's just an idea to work from, so. Okay. I'll take a look.
These are all independent observations over time. These are,
This is going through the atlas that Matt prepared. If you look at the atlas indicates depth at 2 feet, 4 feet.
It indicates the 100-foot line.
Got the
Right.
100-foot. You've got, you can tell that you can see public beach, you can see pristine beach on there. Exposure, we're actually, I've collected a bunch of wind data. Matt's working on fetch data to help further define exposure. But I think it's pretty straightforward if you look at it, just, what beaches are, or what areas of the shoreline are really exposed to either wave action from the wind or wave action from boat traffic.
they're all exposed. I mean, that's,
It comes to outside waters, N was written down there and E was written down there on most of them.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, they're all exposed. The depth line that's on that, I looked at two properties. Okay, and the two properties that people had applied for, and for either a dock or some structure, and submitted a depth survey. Now, a survey that was done by a licensed surveyor, and then I compared that to the chart that Matt did, and I think what Matt did is extremely useful, but I don't think it clearly wasn't accurate in two cases. All right, did I go? I don't have the time to go around to all of them, but I don't think you could use that line that's coming from a satellite to represent what a depth is in an area. You can use a chart, you can use a nautical chart, because that has been measured, at least.
I think it's good for a rough start. So if
It's
we
good
have
for a
those
rough
questions,
start.
if we
It's
have
rough
a
start,
question.
and I find it to be too. I'm having difficulty with it, Billy. I just got to tell you, I'm having difficulty trying to, be objective. It's just the terms are so subjective. The navigate, traffic. Yeah, on July 4th, there's going to be a huge amount of traffic. On September 6th, 7th, it's a different world. And
Well, the dock is there all those days, and every Sunday, during the summer or Saturday, there's a ton of traffic in various areas, and that's the kind of thing we want to take account of. As far as the depth, I think it's a great starting point. I don't think that Matt's chart is that radically off, but if we have questions about certain areas, we can go around the whole thing with a chart. It's easy enough. But I think we have to have a starting point, and this is a starting point, and I think that atlas gives us enough information for a start. So if, and it's about as, you know, it's about as objective as you can get.
I mean, I'll speak to a little bit to the depths, because I totally appreciate the point. I mean, I looked at a couple spots and it's generally in the range, but I think you're right that in specifics, it may be off. I mean, the data comes from is NOAA. It's what they use to update their charts, but it is that specific digital elevation model that I got, which is their most sort of recent update. As far as I can tell, is data from 2014. So especially in the shallows, it's going to move. But there definitely are spots where, like, it's going to differ from a licensed surveyor going in. I think you're right on that.
You had said that going in, Matt, and
Yeah.
I just don't want to be.
No, I think it's a good point.
Thank you.
I guess while we're
And what's the definite? How do we define, a pristine?
A beach where there's no structures, that's basically used as a
Oh, okay.
swimming beach.
Oh, okay. All right.
And in Athens, maybe, perhaps, might be a little late now, but public and pristine should be separated, because a public beach isn't necessarily pristine. In my opinion, a pristine beach has seaweed on it. A public beach, we rate them things now. Just, there is a difference there. I don't know whether it makes a big difference or not, but.
No, again, as with navigation and traffic, break it out. It's, we have to start someplace.
Yeah, no, this is an excellent start. Yeah.
I also, I'm sort of like, trying to reduce things down to sort of specifics and to sort of defendable, or sort of, numerical things where we could actually compare, and everybody would go and do it and come up with sort of the same answer. I did work on an exposure measure that essentially calculates the fetch from a given spot out in 360 degrees to get an idea of how that might change as you went around the island. And so if you're out on Ram's Head, you've got to fetch all the way over to Gardeners. It's quite different than, say, if you're along the coast on sort of Daring Harbor north, and it's going across to Greenport. And Bill and I talked about, sort of adding to that and saying, okay, well, what is the prevailing wind? What is the wind rose for our area? And then you could actually say, okay, there's predominant breeze from the southwest in summertime and that sort of thing. And be able to sort of reduce it down to something that actually would be numerical and assessed for each point along the island. And I did that sort of as a rough cut. It shows sort of, I guess, what I think we all sort of know intuitively about this area is really rough and this area is, less so. So it does do that. The question, I guess, then would be, is there a number you pick that's like, here's the cutoff? Or is there a number, and it's sort of like, well, what number would that be? And then that, I guess, that would then go back to
The fetch would have a rating.
yeah, and it's sort of like
or just.
yeah, and essentially it's sort of it's each 10 degrees from a specific spot. What's the distance out to the nearest shore across the way? And so if interior shores, it's going to be really short. Exterior shores, it's going to be much longer. And then sort of just add up those different the angles emanating out from that one spot. And that's sort of that fetch, it's sort of like the different spots where that could be affected from wind and waves coming from different direction.
An example is, you go down to Shell Beach and you've got a decent fetch over to Jessup's, and southwest wind is prevailing, which is backed up by all the NOAA information I've been pulling out, versus Smith Cove, which you've got a much shorter fetch over to land in whatever direction. And rarely do you see wind coming out of or significant wind coming out of the southeast during the season. So that just gives us certain parameters to work with. All right, well, do what we can with this. And
Can I ask another question?
sure.
I know I brought it up a couple of meetings ago as well. And I'm starting to see some data on it myself, but I'm just wondering, do we know how many how many properties still exist on Shelter Island? How many unimproved properties exist on the island that would allow for a dock under our current code? How many,
I think that there's a.
based
there's
on
a-
based on what we know, a 2-foot depth, 100-foot.
I think there's been no cross-reference between what hasn't been built yet versus what can be built for code. I don't think there is a cross.
Well, sure, there's the all lots that are 100.
I mean, it can be
that have
made,
that
yeah.
have the width. I mean, there was a number that was thrown around. It was like 400. There were 400 that we could have 400 potential new docks, and I just don't think that number is realistic.
What number concerns you? An extra 100 or an extra 25 or, but the point being that if
Well, an
we
extra
don't-
25 wouldn't concern me, but an extra 400 would. And what I'm seeing from people that I know that are looking to buy a waterfront property and put in a dock, the number that they're coming up with is much closer to 25. And 25 over the next 10 years doesn't.
How do they determine if you have a code that has holes in it and permits people to get variance after variance, then how do you stop them from building on the 400 vacant lots? That's the issue we're dealing with here. The issue is to put some code in place where we're not constantly giving variances. The rate we're going, people will be building 300-foot docks off of Ram Island to get out to deep water because we've got no teeth. So we've got to set some parameters, and we've got to come up with a code that has supportable provisions in it, so that we're not constantly dealing with people who want to put docks in areas that are inappropriate.
Right.
That's the whole point of this exercise.
A year ago, we decided that we weren't going to allow for any variances, and we did that. Essentially, over 20.
And since then, we've already given a couple.
We gave one. We gave one to the guy in Smith Cove. That not Smith Cove, but the little basin in there. That was it. Everybody else we sent back to the drawing board, and they came back within the 100 feet, within the 25-foot setbacks. So I think that's the way we do it, and that's you have the moratorium in place now. As a reset. I understand that as a concept. And I think there are some areas where it would be absurd to put a dock. I have no problem with that. And I think we should just make a recommendation that we won't recommend docks in those areas. We're trying to, you're talking about trying to decide how much fetch there is in one area. And then you can get all this data together. And then at the end of the day, it still comes down to what Matt said. You have to decide what is the line where you're going to say, okay, we're going to say you can't have a dock, as opposed to, the owner of the property that says, okay, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I want a dock.
Behind, and you were one of the ones who questioned at the very beginning, what data are we going to base these decisions on? So we're gathering data so we can back up our decisions. Otherwise, you're just making arbitrary.
You don't want it to be arbitrary.
Yeah, exactly. It can't be arbitrary and capricious. I mean, it's
Has to be a formula.
we have to put this together in order to make something that holds up. And, hopefully you'll, help contribute to the process, but it's interesting, I read through the report provided by Hamilton on the Prager dock, and all of his conclusory statements about, this will happen, this won't happen, this won't happen, this won't. Nothing backed up by any footnote to any publication to support his positions. So, if that thing had gone to court, I think it would have blown him away. I plan to have something here that will be supportable when we make certain decisions about what can and can't be done. And that's why we're putting this data together. That's, where it's nothing's perfect. But you have to draw lines. You have to draw lines someplace. Otherwise, 35 miles an hour? No, I think it should be 40 miles an hour. I mean, what?
Right. Where's that number?
Yep,
Traffic safety data.
exactly. Traffic safety data. So, that's, we're trying to put the data together. There's only so much data out there that we can draw upon, but we're going after what's available to make some informed decisions.
Really, I have a thought about the availability of things current. So I've used the assessor's office pretty frequently for land use things, right? Part of my other position here. So I think there's a opportunity to maybe reach out to the assessor's office. Presumably, they have a itemized list of waterfront properties, and whether or not those have any improvements on them or not. And I would suspect that would even itemize if it was a undeveloped property but had an improvement of a dock, let's say, right? Because I would expect that affects your assessment on that property. So you probably could go and get a list of waterfront properties that are either unimproved or undeveloped or both, and then start to dedupe that list using, at least as an initial starting point, the maps that you created with, let's say, 2-foot contour, right, using the town's existing code, right? You could work backwards from that and say, okay, well, all of these vacant properties that don't have docks, based on this 2-foot line, they're all going to be able to have docks, or they all won't be able to have docks. Somewhat arbitrarily to begin with, but at least then you can whittle down the difference between maybe 400 and maybe 25. All of their information historically has been pretty easy to access. They've been very helpful and usually comes in Excel spreadsheets that are pretty easy to work with. So it might be a good starting point.
Thank you. Yeah. On the atlas I put together, there is an indication of whether the assessor says that property has a dock on it or not. So
It's a color code.
Yes, the color coding sort of situation. So if you look on there, it will say that they've indicated it as having one or not. And then I the other aspect that's that's that circle that shows up on I don't know if have you seen the, yeah, okay. But at the center of each of each tax lot, I generated a symbol and sort of indicates whether the assessor was saying there was a dock at a location or not. I also put in whether when I did a review before I got that information, I looked around and I indicated whether I thought there was a dock in there based on literally it's a satellite photo. So it's, again, it's I totally appreciate that it's me looking at something from above or what I remember from going by, and it hasn't been from out and going, seeing the site, but indication of what I thought. And then generally they matched up. In some cases they didn't. And so that's also indicated on there, but whether that's there's a differential.
Right, well, we can.
But I think that, it's
Seems like from there, you'd be able to whittle that down to a pretty reasonable plus or minus number of what you're really looking at.
yeah. The next level is putting in what, given setbacks, what's then actually buildable. I also did that to an extent. There are some. I then ran into the limits of my skills and working, but there are a couple of areas where
From your atlas, we can probably whittle it down pretty well as to what we then go to the town assessor's office with.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that after having gone through it, I would not say that there were 400 lots that don't have a dock associated with them that are on the front. So as an outside number, yeah, it's like 420 or 30, but agreed that not all of those are zoned for it, for a dock. And then you scale that back with other issues, whether depth or setback, that would scale that back. I think, Al, I actually sent you a sheet that had some of that information on there. And that was like a month ago or so anyway, when you asked about that. And I think I indicated some of those numbers, but that's not, I think that's still could use a bunch more refining, and that's something we could do.
Right. Thank you, Matt. I didn't get anything in that with that information. The what I'm basing my information on is someone I know.
You know what, Al, I'm going to cut you off because we never got to chapter 53. I want to spend the next 5 minutes going over this, and then whatever you can email, whatever other concerns you have. But we only have 5 minutes left in the meeting. We haven't even gotten to the code yet.
Yeah, Mark has a comment.
Just one quick statement. If you put just Little Ram and Big Ram on the north side, you have 50 properties that don't have docks. If you throw in Hay Beach, you have another 50. If you go around to the Heights and follow it around, you'll probably have 30. And that's just the north side of the island. So you're dealing with a number well into the hundreds, maybe not 400, but certainly north of 200, I would say.
Thanks, Mark. So the other thing we distributed was some edits to various provisions in the code. The focus here was really 53.7 or 53.5 with the definition of resident and its implications for 53-7, which is really Congdon's Creek dock. Matt and I had done what you see here, and then we received, Tom had a lot of input on this. I know we're not going to get to cover this, Tom, but I didn't input all your changes just because I wanted to give you the opportunity to submit them and go over them. So I'm going to try and just jump to because we covered some of your questions already.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to put them both together like that, but I have, I figured we were going to go line by line or whatever you wanted to do. I can comment where needed.
So the issue, resident is defined so many different ways in the various chapters of our code. For purposes of docks in general, I don't see it being an issue. If you own the real estate, you've got a shot at getting a dock, and you're only going to get one dock. So it really doesn't, you could boil it down to, resident, you own land, you put in an application, see if you can get a dock that fits on your property, according to the code. Where it gets a little trickier is when you're doling out limited resources like space at Congdon Creek Dock. So here, when you just refer to a resident is so broadly described here that I'm just going to shortcut and say I think that the solution here is to have resident, leave resident as a definition of someone who owns real estate, but have domiciliary as someone who actually lives here full-time. You prove that with their driver's license, their utility bills, whatever, voter registration, and limit the use of these public docks to domiciliaries. That's where I was going with this, as opposed to just someone who owns real estate on the island, because basically that could be that could be an entity, and someone who is a shareholder or a member of a limited liability corporation could own a boat And then they would be able to get a slip there, and we could be looking at a commercial shuttle, it's unlimited. So that was I wanted to get feedback to, between definition 53-5 resident and 53-7. And those are that's why I see
Still area
the,
would actually come down to being a physical person, right? And that's the big difference between that and say an LLC, where they, I own this property as an LLC, and then
a natural person who resides here.
We just added the requirement of domicile to the Shellfish Code, and it was a 12-month domicile period before the application. So that was just a note on a time frame to consider who's domiciled and who's not. And it was, again, physically living, not vacation. This is where you come home from vacation. I don't have the exact wording with me, but.
So how do you determine the time limit on domicile? So they have to own either.
Well, they have to be physically residing.
I know, but if they're going to prove that with a driver's license, and the driver's license has to be at least 12 months old.
I'm not exactly sure what the requirement was. I don't have it with me right now, but Kevin was very specific.
See if you can figure that out.
I will
because
actually I was having problems pulling it. I tried to print it earlier, but I think I did something wrong, or maybe there was an update problem at the town website. But I'll figure that out and get that back to you, because like you said, there's multiple different definitions in a town, across the town, different town codes.
I know we've got to drop dead at 6:30, and it's a little after 6:30. So I think we're going to have to put the rest of this over. We'll take your other comments, and because I know you had a question about the size of the boat, and you said, yeah, the boat should be increased to 35 feet and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, they were just throwing that stuff on the table, so that's what that was.
So I got your definitions. I got the change in the as far as the registration for the boat. Current registration. Size limit 35 feet. Yeah, I don't, it's easy to draft in your points, and all your other points are basically what I had listed as town actions, and you'll make a.
I will do something different there, yeah.
I think one sort of question I had for Pete, for the Condon dock sort of situation, slips and stuff like that. I mean, overall, it seemed like there was you did that system. Does the system seem to work? Are people generally happy with it in terms of the way it's functioning now?
You mean the way the slips work, you mean? Or
Yeah.
I think that everything's good down there. A thought came to my mind recently regarding Condon Creek is if we can come up with some sort of maintenance schedule or some sort of information on what was replaced when. And I bring this up because of broken pilings. Yeah, that was finally maybe, I don't know,
I have some thoughts on all of this.
Okay.
And I'll send them to you. It kind of goes in line with the policy and the procedure concept. And I believe a lot of that stuff should be relegated to a formally adopted policy and procedure, but not necessarily enumerated in code specifically. The code references the adopted policy and procedure, right? And then that is a moving and living and breathing dynamic document that is enforced through the codified law, but can be amended as time changes, as things.
necessity arises.
Right. A little bit smoother. Again, it still is approved and formal and exists. Just not necessarily every little 35-foot length, does that need to be in the law? Like, okay, I'm gonna write you a ticket for that, right? We're writing a ticket for the violation of permit conditions overall, right? So I have a lot of thoughts on that. I'll send them to you guys. But I think that
That might be
you
interesting.
might be able to zoom out some of the minutia in there, right? If that's the only place that the resident is referenced in that entire section of code, or for that one section of 38 permits that is a lifetime waiting list to get to, maybe that doesn't need to be a law, maybe that needs to be addressed in policy and procedure. Or can be, could be.
All right, let's see. So we're gonna break, but Matt had pulled out some ideas on fees. This is a different concept. This is for fees for maintaining a dock in a place. And then I had just thrown out some thoughts on penalties. If people could just email me with their, can email us with thoughts on Matt's fees section and my penalties section. Then we'll pick this up next time. And I'll send out dates for other meetings, since now we won't have to even look at any more applications. We can hopefully just have these meetings to focus on what I thought we'd get to tonight. And anyone have anything else?
You open her up to the audience, or?
What do you got? Because we're out of time.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be my first stop. You're not my only stop in the town. I just wanted to bring it up to you. You don't have to discuss it. Bring it up to the town board and other committees. But basically, what I'm looking for me and for a population that's increasingly stressed and getting smaller on the island, is the baymen and the fishermen who are commercially working the bays around here too. And you were talking about the fees, the mooring fees, how the town board didn't come to you, but for those stressed populations to get a reduction in the mooring fees, and also in whatever town dock, so that we can, because we're not, to make it more progressive in terms of what the economy that we live in. We're not talking about building docks on multi-million-dollar properties. We're still inland people probably, and we're
Talking about fees for moorings or fees for docks?
just for moorings, the mooring fees, and you also have a
There is a special thing for the dock fee for commercial. There
right,
is
you
a
have that,
reduction there.
and so you would, and you have a definition. You have commercial moorings, which is, and then you have holding moorings, but commercial also is a big group, because you have the rental moorings, and then you have people that might be in the fishing business, but you lump them into the commercial one. I think if you could hollow that out,
Maybe a better
and
definition.
you could,
Commercial.
for those people, because, I don't want to take up your time, but, if you're a landscaper, you might have 6 trucks or more. Right? If you're a fisherman, you have several boats or more. And then to get, hit with all, these higher fees for all of them, and you're doing this activity, it's,
The activity is a
You know,
requirement of the
it's,
business, yeah.
it's a hardship. And if we don't, and look, and the fishermen that are out there, probably, we're the eyes and ears. I talk to Bo a lot. And if we see something in the water, we call them, we say something. And so, we do provide, something.
No, I think you guys
down
would,
in it.
you
Right, so
don't, yeah,
that's-
you
so
provide
if you could-
quite a lot.
So like I said, like I said, you're my first stop. I'm gonna go to the town board, maybe go to this committee here, a wall, and maybe the town board, and you can, maybe help draw up something that you could bring to the town board and they can consider. All right?
Good,
Thanks.
thanks. Anybody else? Motion to adjourn? Okay, we're done. Thank you.